Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy is Ted.
And today, Nerdarchy is going to be talking about sneaking like a wizard. Hey guys, jump down in the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, game weekly tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Alright, so we were kind of chatting the other day, and we came upon this idea that was present in previous editions, but we really haven't found any mechanics for casting a spell without anyone noticing that you're casting a spell.
Yeah, a little bit of history. Basically, this is something that came about in DnD 2nd edition, and it was primarily a thing in Athos on Darksun. You need, it was illegal to cast spells and to be an arcane caster, so you had to keep that stuff on the DL. And they actually had a non-weapon proficiency back in those days that would actually allow you to do that, to make a check in order to cast spells without being noticed.
Haven't used that term in a long time. Weapon and non-weapon proficiencies.
And here's the thing: you could just re-implement that. You could reflavor skills, but here comes the real problem with doing such. The sorcerer actually gets an ability that gives them the ability to cast spells without using somatic or verbal components.
But that's the only thing in the game that allows that elimination of verbal and somatics.
And they actually have to spend a resource to do it. A sorcery point, which there's a lot of good things you can do with a sorcery point. So for Joe Schmo, the hedge mage next to you, to just go, I'm going to make a charisma check and do this, it kind of becomes this thing, right? This odd thing to me. So then the other question is, if you do allow it in your game, obviously it's probably going to be a perception check or insight check to try and figure out what's going on. But what skill are you going to use? Is it going to be deception, which sounds like it should be deception, except for I don't feel like it's really a charisma based thing you're trying to do.
So I think there's times that it does mention that you can use a skill with an alternate stat, and there's reasons for it. So I think this might be a deception dexterity check to allow it, and it's going to be opposed by their wisdom perception.
Okay. Well, and I also that works for me too. But one of my other thoughts as well is this a stealth check? Because you're trying to stealthily cast a spell. Part of me is also and should it follow the rules for stealth? If you're blatantly being observed, it's virtually impossible for you to cast a spell and detect it. Just like you can't actually without cover, you can't really hide without special abilities.
So it enters into some nuance there, and therefore some levels of debate. I do feel if someone is having a conversation with you, it's going to be impossible, and I would say it might impose some of those checks or some of those negatives, like a -5 or maybe even a -10 to your roll to see if you can pull it off.
But it's 5th edition; we don't use those. Disadvantage.
Well, there's disadvantage, but there are times specifically with hide where you have those minuses.
No, they're passive. That's for your passive.
Oh, so it's a negative to someone else's path. Okay.
Yeah, or to your passive ability. For instance, if you're moving fast and you're using your passive perception, it's a -5. Or if you're in dim light, it would be a -5.
Okay. So it does have to break new ground then. If the only thing that's bad is a possible disadvantage, then I would certainly say that it would definitely impose that.
Well, the other thing too is you could definitely do this is a place where on the player side of things, I would definitely say, okay, this would be a passive check if someone's trying to stealthily cast right in front of them, and you would use their passive ability. Whatever you determine is, if we say it's wisdom perception, and you just use it as normal. So the person who is getting it, they would be at disadvantage. The DM makes his roll or whatever. But going the other way, the DM. You don't have to use passive against the DM because the DM you don't have to keep the secret from the DM, right? So you're not trying. With the player, it's always once you say roll a die, they know something's up, right? So that's why there's a passive stat. So for the DM, it doesn't matter as much, and you could just be roll with advantage or disadvantage, however, whatever works. But it does, but so here's the other thing, right? The trope is there where a caster is talking to you and lacing their words with magic, right? And it could even be like, talking with their hands. Maybe they're Italian. I don't know. And so that's there as well. And that would definitely be them being observed. But at the same time, the sorcerer has to spend a freaking sorcerer point to make that happen.
Right. So now there is resource versus whatever debates that have gone on specific to 5th edition. Now, if I expend that resource as a sorcerer, I eliminate my verbal, my somatic. It just happens. So if I got this rod in my hand, I use my point, I cast my spell, and I don't have to worry about it. Or if it doesn't require a material component, there's no visualization. The effect just goes off.
And no roll.
That's the other side of it. I have to make a roll versus someone else making a roll. It costs me a point. You have to hope the dice are in your favor.
Right.
So it is a balancing factor, and a single sorcery point to a low-level sorcerer might be a big deal. To a high-level sorcerer, not really a big deal.
Well, actually, that's not the real problem. Like, the real problem is the fact that the sorcerer only gets so many metamagics.
Right.
And none of them ever take subtle anyway. But if they wanted to like, it's almost like the resources, the more valuable resource becomes not the actual sorcery point, but the meta magic that you get to choose.
The slot, right.
So you kind of want it to be even better, right? And in this case, the only way to really make it better is to make everyone else worse.
It is true. But at the same time, if people aren't if they're not selecting that subtle, and you have a situation where every so often these kind of things do come up, or, well, what happens if I'm playing a wizard and I want to do this? Is it just a virtual impossibility? Is it a situation where magic is just so much more visual that it's impossible to conceal the effects of it? It doesn't actually read through the spellcasting, and there's nothing that actually talks about the visualization of the magic. Now, yes, I cast a fireball, and yes, a ball of fire literally flies out of my hand or finger and flies the 30 feet or 60 feet up to whatever range and then explodes. All right, you're not going to hide.
That actually sounds like a Monty Python skit to me. a little orange pea just shot out of your... No, it didn't. It's merely pointing.
Oh, Dave, you're right. Now, like, if you have other spells that they don't describe an effect happening other than, oh, well, you're going to get this bonus or you're going to have this thing happen to you. If it doesn't say, oh, you glow in light or, you're sheathed in this, pale glow, then maybe those type of spells, you could get away with doing that kind of stuff. But when you have a very obvious effect to it, okay, not much you can do about it. Well, what if you've got...
I would make the argument, too, that possibly the sorcerer with the subtle spell that casts Fireball doesn't have to point. The P doesn't have to shoot from him.
Right.
Like, it could just blossom into existence in the spot.
Right.
It doesn't say that anywhere, but it does say they don't require the somatic components. So, therefore... I'd probably allow it. Like, I mean, not that it really makes it that metamagic that much better, but it's something.
Right.
We had another discussion too, or another topic, during this discussion, that was sleight of hand. Like, what if some spells actually call out certain manipulations of material components? Which gets weird when you have if you're using a focus instead. But I believe it has been. I don't know if it still is, but it used to be that like the jump spell was you would eat a cricket leg, and then you would jump. So like we were talking, well, would the mage also have to make a sleight of hand check so that they don't see them manipulating the material components? Or what if you fail? Like, if they fail that roll, did they drop them? And now they can't continue with the spell, or they actually have to do something that's going to make it very obvious that that something is going on?
Right.
So that was another topic we had brought up.
So if we go into dexterity, sleight of hand is whenever you attempt an act of legerdemain or manual trickery, such as planning something on someone else, concealing an object on your person. Stealth is when you attempt to conceal yourself from enemies. And then we go into charisma. Deception determines whether you are convincingly hide the truth, either verbally or through your actions. And those are the first sentences. So it's like, every one of those has a bead of truth into what it is you're trying to do here. Would you want to make them have multiple checks? Would it just be the one? That's why I think
You know what it is? Here's what the problem is. Like, charisma is an old stat that's been there from the beginning of the game, and it really just is your likability. And part of that could be your appearance. Very, very early on, it was part of your appearance until they added comeliness, which is something different, completely different. But it just has this really narrow focus, and each edition has tried to widen it and go, no, this isn't a useless thing that you should always dump, because it doesn't really make sense either to always dump it. But game mechanic wise, like, there's not a whole lot to do with it, either, and because it really just breaks down to your likability. That's all charisma really is. Like, some people they just start talking, you want to hear them talk, you like them, you want to hang out with them, they make you feel good for whatever reason. And it's like it's an it factor, right? You have it or you don't. It's one of those things that tends to be innate, and more so than something you can develop.
Right.
Sure, everyone can become more personable, but some people just have it in spades. And people generally with high charisma, they don't have to do anything. It's already, it's just there.
Right.
Like, it's not, they might not even, they're probably not even aware of it. So, but then breaking that down into game terms and making it like on an even playing field with all the other things, especially when 3rd edition came out and they introduced the sorcerer and charisma casters. That's what I mean. Like, it's getting shoehorned. Like, there, it actually says you're physically doing stuff to misdirect somebody, right? Which has nothing to do with your likability. That would really fall under more of a sleight of hand, right, and misdirection through probably manual dexterity, maybe some intelligence due to skills and knowledge.
So that's why I would say that to make it simple, you take deception, which is your physical
fuck you can't hide shit. You just cast spells or you don't.
You make it deception, because this is your mental knowledge of how to fool someone applied to your dexterity score, which is your physical manipulation of the things. So, you're placing something in the way, you're doing it out of their view, or however you get it done using that skill set. It's a combination of mental and physical in one roll. And then it's noticed by their either wisdom perception or wisdom insight, whichever you feel is going to
be more appropriate
or best hit the mark. If you know that they're a spellcaster, well, then maybe insight might look more into it. If you don't know they're a spellcaster, well, then perhaps wisdom perception will allow you to pick up on the little subtleties and nuances or whatever have you.
It's also one of those areas too where like the DM might go, oh, you have Arcana as well. Arcane is it Arcana or Arcane?
Arcana.
So you have Arcana in addition to this other skill. I might even warrant that's like roll with advantage. Because you have knowledge of magic and spellcasting.
Yeah. So if the observer knows about knowledge Arcana, then all right, great. Roll with advantage because you know what's going on.
It is also a possibility. Or if you're a total rube, like maybe it's a disadvantage, and if they have no exposure, you can go the other way as well. It would be easier.
So, I don't know. What do you guys think out there? Do you like it? What's written in the book, and that it's unless you're a sorcerer, you just can't do it. Have you had this stuff kind of come up in your game? There's a great section to do that. Discuss it down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Check us out at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.